a little bit. La 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 la. All right, I think that's almost okay. All right, that's good enough. Good enough. Good enough. All right, ready? Here we go. Good morning and welcome to yet again another episode of Red Stone Lapis Lazuli. It is I, your host, Pogo Kiddo. I'm here. All right, it's gonna crash. It's gonna crash. It always crashes when I transition over to my game. So watch out. Watch out. Okay, it looks like it's okay, right? It looks like it's okay, but it's not. It's crashing. See? Every fucking time. I don't know what the deal is. It does it every time. Luckily, it's 8 o'clock right now, local time, 8 in the morning, and my neighbors are not home. I have no upstairs neighbors. Ugh! So I can be as loud as I want to this Sunday morning. And happy Sunday morning to you. Yeah. So, uh, it is New Year's Eve. It is the day before uh the new year. Let's see, top chat. Let me get into a live chat. Back to game. Yes. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. All right. So, hello, welcome to my Minecraft world. I haven't played this in like a week. I haven't been like so let me tell you a little about where I've been. I flew down to Nevada, to Carson City, Nevada, to hang out with my brother and my mom, and to like fix things around the house, because my mom is getting up there in age. My dad passed away 2 years ago. My mom is getting up there in age, um, and can't and has some difficulty with aspects of keeping the house up. So like, not even just the house, like digital life for boomers is a little bit difficult. It's pretty difficult. So like my mom, uh like she always like she doesn't get the best stuff for herself. So she bought a smartphone many years ago. Wait, smartphone many years ago, but it was a bad smartphone. It was like the cheapest, worst smartphone you could get, and it was so bad that it would lag out all the time, and like she couldn't really do anything with the smartphone. So all her friends would be sending pictures or taking video or whatever, and my mom would try to do it herself, but her, because her phone was so bad, she couldn't do it. So she felt that it was her fault that she couldn't do it, that she was just stupid or something, which is not the case. The problem was that she had a bad phone, and she refused to buy a new phone to upgrade. So she just thought she was dumb, and you don't want your mom thinking she's dumb. So like I finally bought her a modern smartphone, one that's capable of doing all the things it needs to do, and then suddenly my mom has like entered the digital world. So it's been pretty cool, but like it took a lot of work and wrangling with the phone companies to get it working. So it was a nightmare kind of, but now that it's taken care of, everything is much better. Uh, but that just goes to show you like the differences in generations. So, um, yeah. So it was a good Christmas. I had a nice Christmas to see my family, and do everything. It was great. I got to see some old friends. We got to hang out, eat some good food, catch up on stuff. Um, I flew a plane for 8 hours. total. I mean, like, not all at once, but generally the trip took 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours, 10 hours. If I count leaving the house, it was more like 10 hours of travel to get from one place to another. So it took a long time. I was pretty tired last night when I got home. Um, but it's done. It's done. And yeah, now we're here, and I have much to talk about. Even though I was gone for a week, I still managed to keep up on stuff. Plus, I saved stuff from like last week, so I kind of have a show for you today. Ooh, every time I do this, I'm tripped out by my own setup. Like I'm like, ooh, this is so cool. Flying around in my own world. Like. So I can't play too much Minecraft because like my mom says she's not really into the Minecraft. She's more into me talking about like current events and stuff. So show you around a little bit. Ooh, pretty, pretty, pretty. Let's take a little nap here and then I'll get into it, huh? Because we have a lot to talk about, America. We have a lot to talk about. So it's New Year's, right? It's New Year's. It's the Chinese Year of the Wood Dragon. So if you're a wood dragon, it's your year. It's your deal. Um okay. First off, since I started with Palestine, let's continue with Palestine. All right. So, as I've said in the past, the president of the United States in the American system of government, we have separation of powers. We divide out the powers so that no one branch has all the cards to do whatever they want. Because if one branch had all the cards to do whatever they want, they become a dictatorship. They are no longer responsive to the people. They have no checks and balances, and they have just unlimited power to do whatever they want, to disregard the Constitution. So in the United States, in order to avoid the concentration of power that leads to a dictatorship, the founders separated out the powers and divided it into three: the judicial, the legislative, and the executive. That way, you can't take over the government. Well, so focusing on the executive, just on the executive, on the powers of the president. The president has a lot of power and leeway when it comes to foreign relations. Yeah, Congress can pass laws and the president can agree to sign those laws, but it is primarily the president and the State the State Department, which is under the executive, that conducts foreign policy. And there's some checks and balances from Congress, but not nearly as many, because foreign policy is the domain of the president, of the executive. So you can place full weight of responsibility upon the president for our foreign relations. So when Donald Trump was president, he coddled all the dictatorships in the world. He coddled all our enemies. He was friends with all our enemies. And then to our allies, he was a dick. He was bad to our allies. So I can say, well, Donald Trump is a bad guy because look at his foreign policy. When he was unrestrained by Congress, unrestrained by the voters, where we had like the most power, which is in foreign policy, he used that power to help our enemies and to weaken our allies. That's what Donald Trump did. So you can say, oh, bad Donald Trump, bad Donald Trump. However, remember, it cuts both ways. Now that Joe Biden is president, we can ascribe all the responsibility to Joe Biden for foreign policy. Because under the American system, the president controls foreign policy to a large degree. So, to that end, let's look at what's going on. As you know, we're going in 2 months of Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza. 2 months. I recall Biden telling Netanyahu that he would have weeks, not months. However, he's got months. Check it out. He does have months. He's got 2 months so far to conduct the genocide of just killing people in Gaza. Now, he wants to say, "Oh yeah, we're just killing Hamas," but yo, it's 30,000 dead people. Most of those are children. How are children part of a terrorist organization? They're not. They're not. So, pretty much anybody that Netanyahu doesn't like is suddenly a terrorist for Hamas. So, it's a bad deal, right? Netanyahu is a criminal. Netanyahu is a bad guy. He's terrible. He's evil. He has no interest in supporting democracy. He's only interested in creating an ethno-state, which is apartheid, just like South Africa. Just like South Africa did. Well, South Africa, because they know what apartheid is, they referred Israel to the International Court of Justice, to The Hague. December 29th, December 2023. South Africa today filed an application instituting proceedings against Israel before the International Court of Justice, the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, concerning alleged violations by Israel of its obligations under the Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, quote, the Genocide Convention, in relation to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. According to the application, acts and omissions by Israel are genocidal in character, as they are committed with the requisite specific intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza as part of the broader Palestinian national, racial, and ethnic group, and that the conduct of Israel through its state organs, state agents, and other persons and entities acting on its instructions or its direction, control, or influence in relation to Palestinians in Gaza is in violation of its obligations under the Genocide Convention. The application further states that Israel, since 7th October 2023, in particular, has failed to prevent genocide and has failed to prosecute and direct and public incitement to genocide. And that Israel has engaged in and is engaging in and risks further engaging in genocidal acts against the Palestinian people of Gaza. So, basically, Israel is being sent to the World Court for its genocide of Palestinians by South Africa. South Africa is a country that knows apartheid. So when you're getting called out by people who know apartheid, that means something. Well, in response to South Africa referring the Israelis, the Israeli government, or Israel to the World Court for genocide, Joe Biden decided to give Israel more weapons to do genocide. Oh, Israel, you're being sent to court for genocide? Let me give you more weapons. But Congress tried to stop it, right? So Joe Biden went around Congress in order to give weapons to Israel so he can murder more Palestinian people, commit genocide. For the second time, it wasn't just one time, 2 times. 2 times Joe Biden has circumvented Congress to give weapons to the Israelis so they can commit genocide. These are hard facts. These are hard facts. I know there are Joe Biden fanboys who want to go around and say, "Look at all the good things that Joe Biden did. He rescheduled marijuana. He pardoned all the marijuana convictions. He is ending he's canceling student loans. He passed the Inflation Reduction Act and is building all this infrastructure." Yeah, but he's committing genocide. How do you overlook genocide? How do you do it? How do you overlook genocide? Like, it feels like it's easier because it's Israel doing it and not Joe Biden. But Joe Biden is giving the weapons to Israel to do its genocide. Israel couldn't do its genocide if it wasn't for the help of the United States. And it's not like the United States gets to help do genocide for free. No, because the allies of the Palestinian people who like are against genocide, the Houthis, are like angry. And not even the Houthis, but just a bunch of people are angry at the United States for helping to commit genocide against the Palestinian people. So to that end, the Houthis have been attacking shipping containers, cargo ships in the Red Sea, which obliges the United States to spend money and resources to defend the shipping containers, or the shipping routes that are under attack. Why are they under attack? In response to the Israeli genocide sponsored by the United States. So Joe Biden is risking getting the United States into a war in the Middle East so that it can sponsor genocide in Gaza. Now, if this was Donald Trump, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Donald Trump is a fascist. That's what he does. But Joe Biden? Why would Joe Biden engage in genocide? I don't understand his reasoning. I don't understand why Joe Biden would do it. I don't understand why. So looking at it in terms of calculus, electoral calculus, I think Joe Biden is counting on Donald Trump being convicted in 2024. If Donald Trump is convicted in 2024, then there's not really a challenger to Joe Biden for the election, because all the other Republican candidates are terrible. Well, literally all the Republican candidates are terrible. but Donald Trump was the biggest threat to Joe Biden's power. So I think Joe Biden is doing a calculus here, in that Joe Biden is thinking, if Donald Trump is no longer a threat in 2024, then I know then Joe Biden no longer needs to create a big coalition of voters to support him. He can abandon some of the voters and still hold on to power. So, as you know, Arab Americans and Palestinian Americans and Muslim Americans are not pleased that they're being that Palestinians are being genocided with sponsorship from the United States. And Democrats, for some reason, always think, like the big scary guy is Donald Trump. Will scare our voters into voting for Democrats by putting up the boogeyman of Donald Trump. But that's wrong. That's the wrong way to think about it, because the true enemy of Democrats is not Donald Trump. I mean, he's an enemy of the United States, Donald Trump, for sure, right? He's an enemy of the United States, for sure. But in terms of the election, the primary opponent of Democrats is not Donald Trump. The primary opponent of Democrats is apathy. Like, people already are sour on politicians. They're already predisposed to think that all politicians are the same, regardless of their party, that they're all the same. Already. So the thing that Democrats have to do is to show their voters that, number one, they're not like the Republicans, number two, that their voice matters, and number three, that they should participate in democracy, that they should vote. Because the number one opponent to Democrats is the non-voter. It's the person who says, you know what, my vote doesn't count, I'm not even going to bother. Look at all these restrictions on voting. I have to go during a certain time, go to a certain place, wait in line for a long ass time, take time off work, do all that crazy stuff. I have to register, I have to provide ID, I have to survive voter challenges, I have to run the gauntlet of poll watchers, quote, partisan poll watchers who are there to harass and intimidate you. The voter has to get through all of that just to vote. Just to vote. So the number one opponent of Democrats is not the Republicans, it's voter apathy. It's like, why should I even bother? Why should I even bother? And so what Joe Biden has done is showing the American people that it doesn't matter what the American people think, because the majority of American people want a ceasefire in Gaza. They do not want American involvement in the genocide of the Palestinian people. But Joe Biden doesn't care. He doesn't care. He will go around Congress in order to make sure Israelis have the weapons to commit genocide. So the voter watching what Joe Biden does is going to think, why should I even bother voting? Why should I even care? If I vote for Joe Biden, he's going to commit genocide. Why do I want to be a party to that? Why should I have to run the gauntlet of voter restriction to let Joe Biden commit genocide? Why would I do that? So yeah, sure, Democrats, go ahead. Talk about how bad are the Republicans. Go ahead. Talk about how bad is Donald Trump. We already know. The problem isn't how bad is Donald Trump. The problem is how bad is Joe Biden. Why even vote if Joe Biden's just going to commit genocide? Because what makes you think he's going to stop with the Palestinians? So maybe if you're a white American, a white Christian American, maybe you don't feel threatened. Maybe you don't feel like, oh, he would never come for me. He would never do anything to me. But if you're black, if you're a black American, if you're a Muslim American, if you're an Arab American, even if you're a Christian American and you're Palestinian, because a lot of Palestinians are Christians. A lot of Palestinians are Christians. Don't make the mistake that Palestinians are Muslim. But a lot of Palestinians are Christians. So if you're a Christian and you believe in Christian solidarity, Joe Biden is committing genocide against Christians. So maybe Joe Biden feels that if Donald Trump is convicted, he doesn't have to worry about the Muslim Americans. He doesn't have to worry about the black Americans not voting for him. Maybe he thinks once Donald Trump is out of the picture, he can abandon the black voter. He can abandon the Muslim American voter. He can abandon the Arab American voters. Because, they don't get representation. Joe Biden doesn't care about them. He genocides them. That's a pretty cynical calculation by Joe Biden. That he's banking on Donald Trump getting convicted so he can abandon these blocks of Americans. Like, he doesn't really need the state of Michigan, right? Joe Biden doesn't really need the state of Michigan. He's counting on, because there's a lot of Muslim Americans in Michigan. He must not need them. He must not need Michigan. And it's bad. It's bad because it's ongoing, and even if you don't know as an American, you're like, oh yeah, I'm safe and sound inside of the USA. But yeah, the United States is going to become isolated. No one's going to want to hang out with a genocidal nation, just like no one wants to hang out with Russia. And that's the thing, right? How hypocritical is it of the United States to say to Ukraine, oh yes, we are going to help Ukraine defend itself against the genocide being perpetrated by the Russians against the Ukrainian people, and then turn around and then perpetuate genocide against the Palestinian people, saying you are not allowed to defend yourself against Israeli invasions. How hypocritical is that? That position is untenable. You cannot maintain that position. You can't do it. But I guess to Joe Biden, Ukrainians look white, so they're more important than the Palestinians because they're not quite as white as the Ukrainians. I mean, maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe Joe Biden is willing to defend Ukraine because they're white Europeans, but not willing to defend the Palestinians because they're not white and they're not European. I mean, if at first I was willing to give Joe Biden the benefit of the doubt so that he could work some diplomacy. But after running Congress 2 times to provide weapons to Israel, that's gone. You've lost the benefit of the doubt. It's gone. Joe Biden is engaged in genocide with the Israelis. So so the voters got to be like, well, do I want to vote for a guy who enables genocide, or do I just want to stay home that day and relax and not have to deal with all the nonsense that comes along with overcoming voter suppression? But it's a cynical calculation. Joe Biden doesn't think he needs the votes. He doesn't think he needs the black voter. He doesn't think he needs the Arab Americans. He doesn't think he needs the Christians, because the Christians are the ones getting genocided. I think Israel destroyed the 3rd oldest church in the world, Christian church. Why? Because the Israelis are engaged in genocide. They want to erase the history and culture of the Palestinian people so they can take the land. I mean, that's their plan. Their entire plan is to take control of the Gaza Strip, destroy the whole thing, and then move the Palestinian people to somewhere else. That's the plan. And Joe Biden is in absolute support of this new trail of tears. Joe Biden's new trail of tears. He supports it 100%. I mean, he has to support it 100%. How do you do an end run around Congress to get weapons to Israel unless you support it 100%? Yeah, Joe Biden is showing his true colors. We know who Joe Biden is now. He does genocide. Genocide Joe. Kind of sucks, right? Kind of sucks. Because I do know about Donald Trump. I know very well about him. So the Democrats, what they should do is hold a primary. They should ask their voters and say, hey, voters, are you still with Joe Biden, Genocide Joe? Are you still with him? Do you still want to vote for him? But the Democratic Party doesn't want to do that. They don't want to have a primary to see if Joe Biden is still the best candidate for the presidency. They don't want to risk it. Now, there's other people running that are shit, that are terrible. Like, I don't even know their names are so bad. Like, well, I know there's RFK Jr. But he's a Republican plant, and then there's Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West. But I think he's like not such a good idea either. Like, do the Democrats really have no one else to run for president except for Genocide Joe? Oh, it sucks, huh? Genocide Joe? Oh, that sucks. That sucks for Joe Biden. I wonder what he did to have that name. Oh, he supported genocide? He's overruling Congress to support genocide? Is that what he's doing? Yeah. If the name fits, if the shoe fits. Yeah, pretty upset with Joe Biden. And it's not like I can say, oh, it's his party or whatever. No, Joe Biden is president. He has control of foreign policy. He's the one that does the foreign policy. It's all on Joe Biden, just like it was all on Donald Trump. Pretty colored lights. All right. So, hey, check this out. Israel, right? So, Farak Khatib from Ramallah, West Bank, has been released from an Israeli jail. The photos show him before and after being kidnapped by Israeli forces, because that's what Israel does. It just randomly kidnaps people, and takes hostages. So Israel had a ton of hostages before October 7th. Before October 7th, Israel already had thousands and thousands of Palestinian hostages. After October 7th, Hamas, the terrorist organization, took Israeli hostages, and then soon afterwards they did a hostage exchange. Well, how can Israel have hostages to exchange unless it took them before October 7th? Israel takes hostages. Israel is a terrorist state. So if you look at Mr. Khatib, Farak was kidnapped 3 months ago and detained under administrative detention without charge or trial. So in the United States, that's illegal. That's the whole Fourth Amendment. Illegal search and seizure. You can't do that under the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. You can't do that. Take a look at this guy. Look how wasted he is. He looks like he came out of a Nazi concentration camp. I mean, look at Gaza. Gaza is basically a giant open-air concentration camp. So there's pretty good evidence that the Israelis are acting like Nazis. And I hate Nazis. Oh man. That's the thing, right? Like I'm a big supporter of democracy. I want democracy to flourish. I want the whole world to be democratic. Because I believe that's the best way to disperse power, by investing it into the people. And if everybody is invested in the political process, then they all have a say, and then we'll come to the best form of government. I believe in democracy. So it hurts me that Joe Biden is engaging in genocide, which is like the polar opposite of democracy. When you deny people their human rights, you can't have democracy, because you've disenfranchised them from the political process. I mean, indeed, you're murdering them. You're doing a genocide on them. So that sucks. Because I've spent these past 5 years focused on the rebirth of the Confederacy in the United States. Because that's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. Is the Confederacy has been reborn in the Republican Party. So what is the Confederacy about? The Confederacy is number one about oligarchy. I said fascism before, but that's an ideology. I paid closer attention to Dr. Heather Richardson's book, How the South Won the Civil War. And in this book, Dr. Heather Richardson notes that the Confederacy, the organizing principle of the Confederacy, I mean, besides slavery, right? Before slavery, before you even get to slavery, before you can even get to slavery, you have to come to a distribution of power. Because slavery emerges from an unequal distribution of power. So first, before slavery, comes the unequal distribution of power. So we have names for distributions of power. So in a democracy, the power is invested in the people. So it is spread out. It's not concentrated, it's spread out and invested into the people. Therefore, if you improve the quality, education, and lives of the people, you increase the relative power level. Just everyone gets more powerful. The whole thing is more powerful. And if you decrease the quality of living, the education, the consciousness of the people, you decrease the power in the democracy. And what happens is the power becomes no longer invested in the people. It starts to become concentrated. You scrape it up from the people, you take it away from the people, and you place it into the hands of a very few people, an elite. What is that called? Oligarchy. It's called oligarchy. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that what Russia is? An oligarchy? A criminal oligarchy? Like there's Putin, who's like the lead oligarch, and he has control over all the other oligarchs of Russia. And if they step out of line, Putin uses the state to kill to kill those oligarchs. Like you can be as rich as you want in Russia, but if you piss off Putin, he'll kill you. Unless you kill him first. So it's a power thing. It's all about power. Truth doesn't matter. Human rights don't matter. It's only about power. Oligarchs are all about the concentration of power. So that is also the organizing principle of the Confederacy. Is power. So we see now the rebirth of the Confederacy in the Republican Party. How do I know this? Well, look at the policies of the Republican Party. They're allied with Russia. They're allied with Russia, which is, why would you be allies with a enemy of the United States? but that's what the Republicans have done. They've allied themselves with Russia, and they take away the vote by imposing undue restrictions to voting. There's no reason. I mean, I'm okay with like making sure that things are kosher, but when you start throwing up barriers for no reason just to get people to discourage people from voting, so that you can maintain the concentration of power and wealth into the hands of the few, I'm not cool with that. That's a bad idea. That moves away from democracy and goes closer to oligarchy. But that's in practice, that's what the Republicans do. Over and over and over again. So that's just not me talking, right? I'm not just talking BS. Let's look at a state. Let's look at a state here. We have the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, it looks like a lot more red, right? But that's just districts. This doesn't take into account population. You have no idea how many people live here and how many people live here. Turns out the blue areas are highly, highly concentrated. A lot of people live in the blue areas, and not a lot of people live out in the middle of nowhere where these red areas are. So this visual representation skews the reality. When you look at the density, the absolute numbers, we can see that even though it looks like Texas is red, Texas is actually a blue state. If you count the votes, there are 6.3 million Democrats, people who voted for Democrats in Texas. And then there are only 5.06 million Republicans. So you would think, well, geez, that must mean that the government in Texas is Democratic. No. Texas is a Confederate state. It's Confederacy. It's oligarchy. It's a state of oligarchy. That's the ruling principle of Texas. That means you concentrate you scrape away the vote and the power from the people, and you concentrate it into the hands of the few. So even though there are a million more Democrats than there are Republicans, Republicans have absolute control of the government in Texas. They have 35 seats with 5 million voters, compared to Democrats who only have 18 seats with 6 million voters. How does that work? How can the government represent the people if it doesn't represent the people? Well, if you're a Confederate, an oligarch, you don't want the government to reflect the people. You want the government to reflect the elite, the power elite, the people with the power. So to do that, how does Texas do that? How does not only do the Republicans control the state of Texas with a minority of votes, they also enact voting restrictions. So Texas Republicans passed election bill raising voting barriers even higher. The bill, which will tighten what were already some of the nation's strictest voting rules, represents a major victory for Republicans in their nationwide push to restrict voting. Remember, Republicans don't want democracy. They're oligarchs. They want oligarchy. They don't want regular people voting. They don't want to invest the power in the people. They want to scrape away the power away from the people and put it into the hands of the very, very few elite. So, this is a story by J. David Goodman, Nick Corasantini, and Reed J. Epstein. So, the Republican-controlled Texas legislature on Tuesday passed a major bill overhauling the state's elections, overcoming a 6-week walkout by Democrats to cement Texas as one of the most difficult states in the country in which to vote. So, Joe Biden sees that, oh, geez, voters have to overcome amazing restrictions to vote. That is the thing that that Joe Biden has to overcome, not the Republicans. They have to encourage the voters to vote anyways, despite the Confederate attempts to stop voting. If Joe Biden is a genocider, people aren't going to want to take the time to overcome these restrictions. So, the voting restrictions were a capstone victory in the Republicans' national push to tighten voting rules and alter the administration of elections in the wake of false claims about the integrity of the 2020 presidential contest. So, in other words, Donald Trump lied. He lied and made up all these lies about the vote. And none of them were proven. None of them were true. He lost every single fucking court case. Every single court case he had. It's like over 60 to prove voter fraud, and he could never ever do it. So Texan Republicans are like, oh look, the voting fraud's not real. So that means we're gonna pass laws fighting the imaginary, the not real voting fraud, in order to stop people from voting. Based on a lie. The legislation takes aim in particular at Harris County, a growing Democratic bastion that includes Houston and is the nation's third most populous county. The legislation forbids balloting methods that the county introduced last year to make voting easier. So it forbids ways to make voting easier. That's basically what it is. Texas, the Republicans want to make it harder to vote so that less people vote, especially Democrats. They really don't want Democrats to vote. They really don't want Democrats to vote. So in order to stop Democrats from voting, Republicans in Texas have put up barriers to stop them. So there are things like drive-through polling and 24-hour voting and temporary voting locations, and Texas Republicans took all that away to make it harder to vote. It also bars election officials from sending voters unsolicited absentee ballots applications and from promoting the use of vote by mail. So vote by mail is fantastic. Oregon and Utah have been using it for years with no problem, and it greatly improves voter participation. But if you're a Confederate oligarch, you don't want voter participation. You don't want democracy. You want to get rid of democracy. So, of course, these methods that improve democracy are your enemy, and you want to strike them down. So, the bill also greatly empowers partisan poll watchers. Partisan poll watchers are a bunch of Proud Boys that come to intimidate people, to stop them from voting at the polls. And it creates new criminal and civil penalties for poll workers. So they're trying to also attack the election itself by attacking poll workers. And it erects new barriers for those looking to help voters who need assistance, such as with translations. It requires large Texas counties, where Democrats perform better, to provide live streaming video at ballot counting locations. Well, why only there? Why not small counties? Why not do it there? Oh, because small counties vote for Republicans. That's why. So they only want to make it harder for Democrats to vote, not for Republicans. Because Republicans are the Confederacy and they're oligarchs. You get it? You see what I mean? You see the big picture here? Republicans, Confederates, oligarchs, anti-democratic. They don't want people to vote. So including Texas, 18 states across the country have passed 18 states, Confederate states across the county have passed more than 30 bills this year restricting voting, one of the greatest contractions of access to the ballot since the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. So clearly, Republicans are Confederates. The Republican Party is the rebirth of the Confederate Party. Clearly. I mean, we already know this, right? They already attacked the United States on January 6th. We already know they're the Confederates. We already know they're traitors. We already know this. So, what else do I got here? We already know this. Okay, wait. Da-da-da! Well, here's an example of how Republicans are the Confederacy. Ron Johnson, Republican. Look at how recent this was. December 22nd, 2023. So this is a very, very recent story. What's the story about? Republicans brag about sabotaging border security deal. Now remember, Republicans are always bitching about the border. If they're not bitching about the border, they're bitching about the deficit. But Republicans will do nothing to solve either the budget or the border problems. Why? Why will they not solve the problem they always complain about? Why don't they solve the problem? Because Republican voters are stupid. And they don't understand that Republican Party has no interest in solving the problems of the nation. It has no interest in it. Republicans use the border and they use the deficit as a club to beat down Democrats, to always criticize Democrats, only when they're not in power. When they don't have power, suddenly Republicans will take out the club of immigration and the deficit in order to attack Democrats and force them to talk about their narrative. But when Republicans have power, they don't solve the problem of immigration. They don't solve the problem of the budget, because if they did that, they would lose their greatest weapon against the Democrats. So I first learned about this during Obama's term, when the Republicans took control of the House and the Senate and stopped Obama from passing anything else. During this time, the Republicans were using the debt ceiling again to force the Democrats to agree to cut social spending. What does social spending do? It helps regular Americans. And Republicans hate that because they don't want to invest any power in regular Americans. They only want to invest power in the oligarchy. So Obama was going to make a deal with the Republicans. Obama said, look, Republicans, I will give you Social Security, and you can cut as much as you like to Social Security. In exchange, we're going to just get rid of the debt ceiling. Just get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. You Republicans can cut Social Security because Republicans always complain about Social Security. Republicans hate Social Security. Because why do they? Because it helps stabilize regular Americans. That's why. And Republicans do not want to help regular Americans. They only want to help the oligarchy. So Obama offered to let the Republicans cut Social Security as much as they liked in exchange for getting rid of the debt ceiling. And I got really, really, really mad at Obama when he did that. I was super mad at Obama because I thought for sure the Republicans would take it up and cut Social Security to the bone, to kill Social Security. I thought for sure they would take that opportunity. But did the Republicans take it? No, they did not. They did not take the chance to cut Social Security because they did not want to give up the debt ceiling. That debt ceiling is a club they use to beat the Democrats with. Why would they give up their club? They don't want to do that. They don't want to solve problems. They only want to tear down Democrats. So that's one example. That's the first time I noticed that Republicans had no interest in solving the problems that they bitched about. That the problems they bitch about are only used as weapons against Democrats. They have no actual intention of ever solving the problem. In fact, Republicans love the open border. They love a border in which migrants just cross over. Because for Republicans, their main constituency, their number one constituency is the wealthy, is the rich. That's why when Republicans had power in 2018, total control of the government in 2018, the number one legislative accomplishment was cutting taxes on the rich. So Republicans love the fact that the border is never solved and that all these illegal immigrants are coming across the border. They love it. Republicans secretly love it. Why? Why would Republicans secretly love all these immigrants coming over when publicly they say they hate it? Why would they secretly love it? Because Republican businesses get to exploit the migrants. If you're an illegal immigrant, you have less protections from the law. When you're an illegal immigrant, you can't just go to the police and say, hey, I need help, my employer is ripping me off. Because technically, you're not supposed to be working. But Republicans love workers who are weak. They love weak workers. They love it because weak workers are not able to negotiate for better working conditions. So if you're an illegal immigrant, you can't complain that your job is dangerous. You can't complain that it's not following regulations. You can't complain that your employer is not paying you fairly or on time. You can't complain about any of that because you're not supposed to be in the country. So Republicans love it. They love it. When I lived here, so I can even tell you about a personal story. There was a woman that I knew that befriended me here in Salem. And she had over an exchange student from Venezuela. There was an exchange student from Venezuela. And while he was here in the United States, Marudo, who was the president of Venezuela, did something stupid or whatever, and the United States responded by not allowing Americans or anyone to send money back to Venezuela. So the kid, the exchange student, was stuck in the United States because his parents couldn't send him money anymore. And he wasn't legally allowed to work. Well, this American woman knew this and said, hey guy, illegal person who's here illegally, since you have no lawful protections, I'll give you a job. You can refloor my entire house for me. And I'll justify it by saying it's our house. But come on, dude. That's not his house. That's not his house at all. The moment he's done with that work, he's going to get kicked out and he can't live in there anymore. But she justified it by saying, oh, it's our house. Even though it's totally not. She exploited his bad position in order to get cheap labor. Just like all the other Republican businesses do. There are so many Republican businesses in Texas that employ illegal immigrants in order to get cheap labor. So this does two things. It helps the business owner make profit, and it reduces the labor power of American workers here in the United States. Because how are they going to compete with labor that is not regulated, doesn't get paid well, and has no protections? a Republican business with a choice between an American worker, but you have to pay at market rate and pay taxes on, or an illegal immigrant where you don't have to pay taxes and you can pay at a lower rate and not have to worry about protections, and you can fire them whenever you want. The business is going to go for the cheap labor. So Republicans secretly love the border problem. They will never solve it. They never intend to solve it because they make massive profit off the exploitation of workers, of the labor from illegal workers, from illegal immigrants. So they say they want to solve it, and they use that to attack Democrats, but they never intend on solving it. They never want to solve it because it helps them. Just like they never intend on solving the debt problem. They never intend on solving it because that debt problem is the thing that lets them attack Democrats. So Ron Johnson, so the Republicans here, just the other day are bragging about how because they're bitching about how the border security, but when the Democrats try to work with the Republicans to solve this problem, they sabotage it. Republicans sabotage it so it never gets solved, so they can continue to attack Democrats. And look who's leading it. Ron Johnson, Republican Senator Ron Johnson, is leading efforts to block a deal on border security. Talking on Fox News about the border deal, Johnson, who's part of the Homeland Security Committee, so Ron Johnson, part of Homeland Security, said he's been pretty well leading the efforts to slow down the process to make sure it doesn't actually happen. So why would Ron Johnson want to stop the country from solving its border crisis? Well, the reason is a bipartisan border security and immigration deal would unlock the stalled aid package for Ukraine, blocked by House Republicans. So House Republicans are saying, we're not going to supply Ukraine until we fix the border problem. And Ron Johnson says, I'm not going to fix the border problem so we can continue to block aid to Ukraine. Why would a Republican simultaneously block aid to Ukraine and not want to solve the border problem? Well, remember who Ron Johnson is. In July 4th of 2018, Ron Johnson flew to Moscow to hang out with the Russians. Yes, Ron Johnson hung out with the Russians on July 4th. The guy who's sabotaging the border deal to block aid to Ukraine is also the guy who flew to Moscow on July 4th. One of the Republican senators back from a trip to Moscow is suggesting that Congress went too far in punishing Russia for meddling in the 2016 presidential elections. So Ron Johnson, who flew to Moscow on July 4th, said, oh yeah, we're too harsh on Russia. We should stop sanctions on Russia, is also blocking the border deal that would unlock aid for Ukraine. And what's Ukraine doing? Fighting an invasion of Russia from Russia. So Ron Johnson says, I've been pretty upfront about the election interference is not the greatest threat to our democracy. So Johnson won re-election in 2016 with President Donald Trump on the top of the ticket. He said that the Senate may have gone too far with mandatory sanctions against a host of Russian entities. He also said that the sanctions did not appear to be working as intended. So this is July 4th, 2018. Trump is scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin next week in Helsinki. So 2 weeks before Trump met with Putin in Helsinki, Ron Johnson flew to Moscow and came back and said that America should be nicer to Russia. So wait a minute. What did Donald? Oh, here we go. The next one. 8 Republicans picked the worst possible place to celebrate July 4th. This is on July 6, 2018. What does July 4th mean to me? Ron Johnson? Freedom. Freedom to go to Moscow, Senator Ron Johnson said. For the Wisconsin Republican, it meant specifically the freedom to spend July 4th in Moscow with 7 other Republican lawmakers posing for propaganda photos with Russian officials. On the same day, it was reported in Britain that 2 more people had been poisoned by a Russian nerve agent British officials say came from Vladimir Putin's regime. On the day after, the Senate Intelligence Committee affirmed the U.S. Intelligence Committee's conclusion that Russia interfered in the election to help Donald Trump. So, Ron Johnson went to Moscow to pledge allegiance to Putin. He came back saying that Americans shouldn't punish the Russians for attacking the American election. Oop, not that one yet. So that happened, right? A week later, after Ron Johnson went to Moscow to pledge allegiance to Donald Trump sided with Putin against the Americans.
For each president, President Trump, yes. You first. Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe? My second question is,
do you believe the Americans?
With the whole world.
Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? That is the question you should be asking every single American. Every single American, you ask, do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? Republicans, every Republican you talk to believes Vladimir Putin. Every single Republican. Ask them. Ask them. I'm not just making it up. You can ask them yourself. Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? The Americans say that Russia interfered in the 2016 elections to help Donald Trump win. And Vladimir Putin says, no, I didn't do that. So who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? And the majority of Republicans agree with Vladimir Putin. Almost all the Republicans say that they're on board with Vladimir Putin, that Americans are liars and that Vladimir Putin is the one telling the truth.
Watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016 and would you warn him to never do it again?
So he asked Donald Trump, who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? And number 2, will you warn Vladimir Putin never to interfere again? Those were the 2 questions posed to Donald Trump standing next to Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. 2 weeks after the senators flew to Moscow for July 4th. So the Republican senators went ahead of time on July 4th to meet with the Russians to make sure that they were on the same page. Then on the world stage, Donald Trump does this.
So let me just say that we have 2 thoughts. You have groups.
So the question was, who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? The next thing was, will you tell Vladimir Putin never to interfere again? Those are the 2 things. Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? And will you tell Putin never to do it again? So those are the direct questions to Donald Trump.
That are wondering why the FBI never took the server? Why?
That the server has nothing to do with who do you believe. Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin?
Haven't they taken the server?
He's making shit up. There's no such thing as the server. He's making shit up. He's avoiding the question. You ever see that movie, The Matrix? How when Neo shoots, or when they shoot the gun at the agent does that, the warping thing? That's what Donald Trump is doing. He was given a direct question, and he is warping. He's doing the Matrix dodging, so he doesn't answer the question.
Why was the FBI told to leave the office of...
No, that wasn't the question. The question is, who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? Look at him dodge. Look at this dodge. He's dodging, dude. He's dodging.
The Democratic National Committee, I've been wondering that. I've been asking that for...
But we asked you. Who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans or do you believe Vladimir Putin? Look at him dodge. He's trying to pin it on the Democrats. You see him? He mentioned the Democrats. What did the Democrats have to do with who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans or Vladimir Putin? He's trying to change the focus, so you're blaming the Democrats.
For months and months, and I've been tweeting it out and calling it.
Yep, he's been pushing the false narrative that somehow this is related to the Democrats. He's been pushing it out. He tells you, I've been trying to put this fake narrative out there. I'm trying to put this fake narrative out there, and your question ruins it.
Get out on social media. Where is the server?
That's not the question. The question is, who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans, or do you believe Vladimir Putin?
I want to know, where is the server?
We want to know, do you believe Americans, or do you believe Vladimir Putin? That is the question. Over and over and over again, that is the question.
Server, and what is the server saying?
What is the server saying? Dude, you're on crack. Well, no, Donald Trump is not on crack. He's on something else. But he's on drugs for sure.
With that being said, all I can do is ask the question.
Who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans, or do you believe Vladimir Putin?
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia.
Okay, so the Americans came to Donald Trump and said, oh yeah, the Russians interfered in 2016 elections. Yep, the Americans said that Russia attacked our elections in 2016. That's what the Americans say. Okay, good job, right? He got that part right. And the second half of the question.
I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia.
Okay, so the Americans are saying, yeah, it was that Russia did it. Russia attacked our elections in 2016. And Vladimir Putin says, no, I didn't do it. So the question is, who do you believe? Do you believe the Americans, or do you believe Vladimir Putin?
I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to.
So I don't see any reason why it would be Russia? You mean you in other words, Donald Trump just agreed with Vladimir Putin. He said the Americans say that Russia did it. Vladimir Putin says no, we didn't do it, and Donald Trump says, well, I don't see why Russia would do it. I'm with Russia. On the world stage, right 2 weeks after Ron Johnson and other Republicans flew to Moscow to have a secret meeting with the Russians. Right there, dude, right there. Now that he answered the question, he's going to spend a lot of time covering it up. He answered the question, but now he's going to cover it up with conspiracy. Just like his lead up. The lead up to the answer, he tried to insinuate that it was that Democrats had done something. Because that's what Republicans do. They insinuate. He answered the question. He said he agrees with Vladimir Putin and thinks the Americans are wrong. And then he's going to insinuate that it's the Democrats.
See the server, but I have confidence in both parties. I really believe that this will probably go on for a while, but I don't think it can go on without finding out what happened to the server.
See, you see what I mean? The server, like, he's just bullshitting about the server. He already answered the question. He said, yeah, my guys came to me and said it was Russia. Putin says it's not Russia. I'm with Putin. That's what he said.
What happened to the servers of the Pakistani gentleman?
What? He's just making shit up. He's just making shit up. He has no idea. He already answered the question. Now he's trying to cover up his answer with insinuations of something else that he can never ever prove. He has no evidence of it, and like years later, we have no idea what he's talking about.
That worked on the DNC. Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they?
I don't know what he's talking about. He's full of shit. He's making shit up in order to cover up the fact that he just agreed with Vladimir Putin and called the Americans liars.
What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails?
I'll tell you about Hillary Clinton's emails. Of the 30,000 emails, only 3 had classified information, and that classified information wasn't from her. It was written by somebody else, and the marking for that classified information was a tiny little C. It was like not even a valid representation, like it wasn't a valid marking for classification, so it was really nothing. That's why James Comey never pressed charges, because there was nothing there. But Donald Trump is still trying to insinuate that all of this came from Hillary Clinton because his base will eat it up. They're stupid. They cannot. Well, no. Maybe his base. Maybe they agree with Vladimir Putin. That's why.
3,000 emails gone. Just
yeah,
gone.
yeah. Whatever.
I think in Russia they wouldn't be gone so easily. I think.
Wow. I don't. So he's praising Russia. Do you hear him how he praised Russia? So he's. Oh.
It's a disgrace that we can't get Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails.
He's making shit up. There are no 33,000 emails, dude. He's just making shit up. Of course, remember, 4 years later, he would steal boxes and boxes of U.S. secrets and keep it in Mar-a-Lago. So, if he's so angry at Hillary Clinton for that, we should be executing Donald Trump for what he's done with our secrets.
So I have great confidence in my intelligence people.
He has great confidence in his intelligence people.
But I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful.
Oh, but President Putin was extremely strong and powerful
In his denial today. And
in his denial. So he's like, even though the Americans say that Russia did it, Putin is strong and powerful, and I'm with him.
What he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have.
Look, listen to this offer. President Putin, listen to this offer of President Putin.
Have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people.
So Vladimir Putin offered to have the investigators come to Russia.
I think that's an incredible offer, okay?
So this interview happened a few weeks after Ron Johnson flew to Moscow. Remember, Ron Johnson is the one blocking the immigration deal. By blocking the immigration deal, Ron Johnson also blocks aid to Ukraine. So you know that, and Ron Johnson is an ally of Russia. Oh, that's what yeah. So here's the thing. I keep saying Republicans are allied with Russia. Republicans are allied with Russia. But it's not just me saying it, right? Republicans also say the same thing.
Their portfolios, and they love their money more than they do anything else. And they protect it, and they protect the people.
Okay, so this is Representative, I think Tennessee Representative Tim Burchett. And he's on this right-winger's podcast, and he's telling the right-winger that Republicans are all compromised by Russia.
That do that. And by doing so, the old honeypot, the Russians do that, and I'm sure members of Congress have been caught up. Why in the world would good conservatives vote for crazy stuff like what we've been seeing out of Congress? It's how it works. You're visiting, you're out of the country or out of town, or you're in a motel or bar in DC, and some whatever you're into, women or men or whatever, comes up and they're very attractive and they're laughing at your jokes and you're buying them a drink. Next thing you know, you're in the motel room with them naked, and next thing you know, you're about to make a key vote, and what happens? Some well-dressed person comes up and whispers in your ear, "Hey man, there's tapes out on you. Were you in a motel room on whatever with whoever?" And then you're like, "Uh-oh," and said, "You really ought not be voting for this thing." I mean, and what do? It's human nature. And, no man or no woman actually is an island, and they know what to get at. If it's women, drugs, booze, it'll find you in DC and in most elected offices. And that's what people of power and influence do. And it's just, I've been in this game.
So Republicans, he knows that Republicans have been compromised by Russia, by Russian honeypots. He knows it already. He already knows it. So we have the Republicans who are Confederates, either allied or blackmailed by Russia to help Russia. and to help overthrow democracy and install oligarchy. Oligarchy is ruled by the few. Either confederacy or whatever, monarchy, whatever. It's ruled by the few. All right, what else we got here? Yeah, the Republicans are on Team Russia. Republicans agree with Vladimir Putin and are helping to destroy American democracy and install oligarchy, just like in Russia. So you remember this guy? I am not a crook. That's what's his name? Oh, Maria Butina. So this is from the Mueller report. The statement of facts reveals that the plot was written down in part by in a March 2015 document titled Description of the Diplomacy Project. Butina wrote that she believed the candidate Donald Trump, nominated by political party 1, the Republican Party, would likely be elected president. According to her plea document, Maria Butina is a Russian spy, stated that she had laid the groundwork for an unofficial channel of communication with the next U.S. administration by gaining the confidence of a certain U.S. civil society gun rights organization, that is to say the NRA, which Butina posited had influence over the GOP. So you remember Maria Butina? She was a Russian spy that had sex with a bunch of Republicans in order to get influence over the Republican Party and to inject Russian influence into the Republicans. So remember Tim Burchett talking about it?
Their portfolios, and they love their conservatives vote for crazy stuff like what we've been seeing out of Congress. It's how it works. You're visiting, you're out of the country or out of town, or you're in a motel or bar in DC, and some whatever you're into, women or men or whatever, comes up and they're very attractive and they're laughing at your jokes and you're buying them a drink. Next thing you know, you're in the motel room with them naked, and next thing you know, you're about to make a key vote, and what happens? Some well-dressed person comes up and whispers in your ear, "Hey man, there's tapes out on you. Were you in a motel room on whatever with whoever?" And then you're like, "Uh-oh," and said, "You really ought not be voting for this thing."
Maria Butina. All up in that. Maria Butina was at Donald Trump's inauguration ball. So this is an example of what Tim Burchett is talking about. Maria Butina was one of those Russian honeypots that blackmails Republican politicians and then influences them to vote a certain way. So Ron Johnson flew to Moscow on July 4th, and then now is blocking the immigration deal so that Ukraine doesn't get aid from the United States and that Russia can better attack Ukraine. That's their whole deal. It's clear as daytime. It's clear as day. All right. Real quick, remember how I told you how some lawyers are tricky? You have to really, really, really watch out for lawyers because they have a craft. Here, listen to this. Watch this. Donald Trump, this is the message Donald Trump put out. Here, I don't even want to put it out. It's a bad message. Let me snip. Snip. We're going to go like this. Okay, Donald Trump said illegal immigration is poisoning the blood of our nation. That's what Hitler said. He's quoting Hitler. And then his lawyer came out and, oh shit, said Trump was pretty clear. He's saying that immigrants that are coming are poisoning the blood of the nation. And this woman says, he never said immigrants. Technically, that's true. Technically, Donald Trump didn't say immigrants. He said illegal immigration. But what's the difference between illegal immigrants and illegal immigration? Not a whole lot. You know who he's talking about. You know who he is talking about when he says what he says. So that's just a way that Republicans twist language in order to hide the truth. Because Putin and Trump are the same thing. Putin wants to weaken NATO, and then Trump wants to weaken NATO. Putin wants Ukraine's military weakened. Trump withheld military aid for 55 days, and Republicans are blocking aid to Ukraine right now. Putin wanted U.S. intelligence, and Trump gave U.S. intelligence. He gave the Russians the information they wanted. Putin wanted U.S. sanctions on Russia lifted, and Donald Trump lifted those sanctions that were on Russia. Putin wanted U.S. to withdraw from the nuclear arms treaty. Trump withdrew the U.S. from the nuclear arms treaty. Once you realize that Trump's allegiance is to Putin, not America, everything he does makes sense. I mean, look at Roger Stone, right? He's got a tattoo of Nixon on his back. So remember what Nixon said? I am not a crook. Look what Donald Trump said. I am not an insurrectionist. I am not an insurrectionist. So, yeah, dude, Donald Trump is the same thing as Richard Nixon. Although I don't know if Richard Nixon ever worked with the Russians to overthrow American democracy. But I bet he would have. If he had the chance. If it meant holding on to power. And then look at Roger Stone again. Trump's pardons Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, and Charles Kushner. Who's Charles Kushner? The father of Jared Kushner. Who's Jared Kushner? Donald Trump's son-in-law, who was in government and then used his government access to make money for himself. $2 billion. So it's weird that Republicans are going after Hunter Biden, who was never in government, but they're ignoring Jared Kushner, who was in government and whose family is a bunch of criminals. So Mr. Manafort was convicted in 2018. So Paul Manafort is a guy who went to Ukraine and helped the Russian puppet get power in Ukraine. After that, he flew to the USA, and he became Trump's campaign manager and helped Donald Trump become president by being the go-between for Donald Trump and the Russian government. Same thing with Roger Stone. Let's see. Yeah, remember what January 6th was? Remember what this was? A bunch of armed people.
Multiple capital injuries. Multiple capital injuries.
Look at those weapons. Weapons all over the place, dude. Look at all those Trump flags. Don't forget what happened. So basically, we have to be afraid of the Republicans doing something like that again, attacking the Americans again, attacking democracy again. Because Donald Trump is already getting his people getting ready and instructing them to get ready to attack the United States on behalf of Russia. So, real quick. California has a budget deficit. This is in May of 2023. And back then they thought it was going to be $32 billion. So California's budget deficit has grown to nearly $32 billion, saying the state's challenges are partly due to high inflation and a decision to let most people delay their filing taxes because of a series of winter storms. So what happened in California was, because of these storms and these hardships, California let their people pay their taxes as late as November. But they had to write a budget. California had to write a budget like months before. That's about $10 billion more than Newsom predicted when he first offered his budget proposal. The deficit is part of Newsom's overall proposal for a $306 billion budget, by far the largest state budget in the nation. That's not true, dude. Let's see. Anyways, so the problem with California is that because they wrote a budget before they got their revenues in, they had to guess how much money they're going to have, and they guessed wrong. So they have a giant budget deficit because they guessed wrong about their how much money they're going to need or get. But Republicans want to blame. So we go like here. Republicans, the town hall is a right-wing website, and Republicans want to blame the deficit on the health insurance that California is going to offer immigrants. But they're not connected. They're not related at all. The deficit has nothing to do with the plan to provide health care for immigrants. So I like how they use the word illegal aliens. You can tell that they're right-wing, that they're Nazis, because they use this term illegal aliens. So Governor Gavin Newsom decision to expand health insurance coverage undocumented adults between ages of 19 and 25 and those over 50. So he's being warned by Sally Pipes, a healthcare policy expert and the president and CEO of the Pacific Research Institute. So all of this comes from the Pacific Research Institute. What is the Pacific Research Institute? Oh, it's financed by billionaires, the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers did this. Remember the Koch brothers? One died, so there's only one left. But the Koch brothers are billionaires who want to overthrow American democracy. And look at, they receive cash from Pharma, Pfizer, and Exxon. So oligarchs, they're oligarchs. An organization by oligarchs is trying to insinuate that the reason why California has a budget deficit is because it provided health care to undocumented workers. And but we know the truth, that the truth is the reason why California has a deficit is because they let their people pay taxes late, so they had to guess about the revenues and they guessed wrong. That's the real reason. But Republicans aren't interested in the truth, they're interested in power. Oh yeah, Donald Trump. I don't fucking care that they have weapons, Trump fumed in urging aides to take down the magnetometers near the White House before he addressed a Stop the Steal rally. Hutchinson testified, quote, "They're not here to hurt me. Take the fucking mags away." So Donald Trump was going to give a speech on he was going to give a speech. Remember that big speech that he gave the people to rile them up before he sent them over to the Capitol to start the riot on January 6th? Well, in order to get near the speech, you had to get through the gates, and the gates had metal detectors. And because so many people had weapons, it slowed down the number of people who could get in because they kept having to stop people because of all the weapons they had. So Trump said, well, then take away the metal detectors. I don't care. Donald Trump said, I don't care that they have weapons because they're not here to hurt me. Donald Trump assembled them to attack the Capitol, not Donald Trump. So Donald Trump didn't care if they had weapons because they weren't going to use the weapons against Donald Trump. So for sure, there were weapons on January 6th. Even Donald Trump knew that they had weapons. And you can see the weapons for yourself. Here, let's look at the weapons again. Look for the weapons. Every flagpole is a weapon. There's hockey sticks, there's bear mace.
Multiple capital injuries.
Look at them. Look at them attack. Those are all weapons. All those are weapons. So I know Republicans try to gaslight you and say there are no weapons, but you can see for yourself. Who you're going to believe? Your eyes or lying Trump people? Trump supporters. Trump supporters are brainwashed. They have no sense of they can't see truth anymore. All right, I'm going to end it there. Oh yeah, here, wait, real quick. This is a good one. I don't give a damn about men transitioning to women. I'm much more concerned with Republicans who are transitioning to Nazis. Don't let Trump turn you into a Nazi. And for a lot of people, it's too late. They're already Nazis. A lot of people are already Nazis. Ron Johnson is a Nazi. He betrayed the United States to serve Russia. And you can see how he serves Russia. On purpose, he sabotages the immigration deal so he can block aid to Ukraine. And so he can continue to attack Democrats for the border, even though he's the one blocking the solution. Because Republicans have no intention of ever solving the budget or immigration because they profit off of both of them. So it really sucks that Joe Biden is pro-genocide because we're facing such dire attacks on democracy. And for Joe Biden to screw us like this, it sucks. It really sucks. Like, Democrats really should have a primary. Anyways, Happy New Year. It's gonna be fucking crazy next year. Because Republicans, there's a lot of Republican voters, you know, who are on Team Russia and who have plans to attack the United States. And a lot of Republican politicians are compromised by Russia and will vote to help Russia out. And of course, both Russia and Republicans are opposed to democracy, so they're both attacking democracy. And if it's that easy to corrupt Republicans, what do you think China's going to do when China decides to attack Taiwan? They're going to compromise more Republicans so Republicans abandon Taiwan as well. So I'm just saying, get ready. It's going to be a crazy year in 2024. It's going to be a defining year. I think that year, 2024, is going to be like a turning point. A major turning point. Because we also have climate change. I think 2023 is like the hottest year on record, on average. So 2024, big year. It's the year of the dragon. So, all right, America. Until next time, Pogokiro out. Peace. Stop.